So, I have this old Soviet van just kind of hanging out in my garage right now. Completely U.S. legal, U.S. plates, U.S. title. I can drive it around. It's also on a lift right now. I'll probably end up explaining that as well. But, yeah.
Alright, let me backtrack just a tad bit. So basically, last year I saw this video of this like awesome Russian van, and as soon as I saw it, like I knew I had to have one. The UAZ 452, aka the Bukhanka. So I got a couple pictures of it here. I mean, just look at this thing, right? Like you gotta have one. So, like any reasonable adult, first thing I did when I saw one of these is like, gotta get a ticket to Russia. I gotta go out and buy one. Duh. Well, not necessarily. So first thing I did was I tried to see if I could find one domestically, and unfortunately, I really couldn't find anything. There's been a couple for sale in the U.S. for I don't know past couple of decades, but nothing serious. I couldn't really find anything currently on the market. I did find the 469, which is like the Jeep variant. Like you could get those for days. So I mean, here's a couple here. I mean, obviously the prices are a little bit high, but you know, by the time you actually go abroad or you try to import one, deal with all the paperwork, like I can understand why. And I'd imagine these are all in like immaculate condition as well. Um, like there's a company in Massachusetts that sells these things all the time. I found a couple of companies in Seattle that actually import pretty much just the Jeep variant. And again, I'm sure if you really wanted to, you could probably reach out to them and see if they could get you a Bukhanka, the full van. But I wanted the full van. Like I had to have the van. Like it's just too awesome. I mean, look at this thing, right? Like it's too awesome not to have one of these. So I didn't ever really plan on making a video about how to buy a ex-Soviet van, how to import it, and there's really nothing out there. Like if you look up like how importing Russian vehicle to the U.S. or Canada or anything for that matter, like it's super difficult. I mean, you could find companies like if you wanted to import a Japanese car or even like German, EU, anything like that. Like there's companies out there that will do everything for you. You just find the vehicle, they'll go over there, they'll import it, they'll do everything. But as far as like as ex-Soviet vehicle, um, there's almost nothing out there at all. So that's the entire reason I thought I would make this video. There's almost no information. I'll go everything basically from getting a visa to, geez, all the way up to registering it at my local DMV, the looks and everything I got when I was doing that. So when I knew initially, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go over to Russia. I took Russian in high school. I know how to say hello and goodbye. Like, I know a tad bit. I'll go over and, buy one and bring it back, blah, blah, blah. I was looking at, the websites of how to legally, register a vehicle in the U.S., get shipping quotes. And it didn't. And honestly, I can recommend right now, I would do not do that. Do not just randomly buy a plane ticket and, oh, I'm going to go to a random country, Moldova, and buy this vehicle and bring it back. Like, unless you know somebody in the ground over there or you're working through a company or something, bad idea. Because there's a lot of stuff that happened, and if I didn't have a local person, I would have been screwed big time. So one of the first websites when it's like, okay, like I got to import one of these. Like there's nothing, domestically that I can buy. I really want to have one. They're awesome. So first, almost the first website that pulled up for me was Travel Real Russia. Like it was like literally first on the Google list when like import UAZ to US or just import UAZ or whatever. So I dealt with Tony there. The guy's a complete legend. Like I don't know how else to say. I could not have done this without him at all. As far as the European side of things go, he did 99% of everything. So I'll try to recap what I think, I guess, he did. European side, I can tell you all the paperwork, everything had to go through the U.S., getting it out of the port, registering it, getting title plates and all that. But as far as actually like the Russian side of things, like this guy was an absolute legend. No other way to say it. So he has a pretty detailed website, and I knew too when I saw it that this guy literally offers a tour where you go to Russia and you buy a van. Like that's just awesome. It's like I knew I had to do it right off the bat. And honestly, if there's one thing I do regret, it's before I went, I probably should have read his entire blog because it has super detailed information, like for free, basically on, traveling through Russia, what you probably should know, all the ins and outs of these vans, little quirks and whatnot. Very detailed, and there's a lot of things that I kind of had to learn the hard way, wandering around the metro and, I get back to the U.S. It's like, oh, the guy literally had a full guide on how to use the metro system. Like, I'm an idiot. Um, you know, but anyway, cannot say enough about it. So basically, yeah, let's begin. So first thing, I did look at a few different companies. Like I said, initially the idea was, oh, I'll buy one and I will, go over, buy one, ship it over myself, right? And I got a few quotes. I could not find, that brings up the first thing. Shipping was a really big deal. So let me get into that. So, getting back into shipping, I reached out to Tony, and the guy literally got back to me within like a minute, and we were kind of going back and forth with options. Now, in Russia, really, and obviously, I chose, this guy is located in Russia. These vans are Russian vans. If you wanted to import one, different countries, like Ukraine, for example, or if you could find an EU one like Germany or Poland or something, obviously, I'm sure all this would be way easier. But you're also going to be paying more, and I would imagine too, getting parts and whatnot, and people that understand these would also be a lot more difficult compared to the ex-Soviet countries. I reached out to, I don't know, like 30, 40, every single shipping company I could. And most of them, like if you go to their websites, they'll advertise, oh, we'll ship from anywhere to anywhere. That is not true at all. Like 80% of them didn't get back with me. Some of the few that did were, oh, well, we don't ship from Russia or something like that. It's like, okay, then why do you advertise you ship from Russia? There's three main ports in Russia for shipping vehicles. Vladivostok, which is way out by China. Then there is Novorossiysk, which is, I guess, like the main one, Black Sea, by Georgia and Ukraine and all that. And then third one is St. Petersburg. Everybody knows where St. Petersburg is. And from what I read, though, like review-wise, a lot of people actually, just because of all the paperwork and stuff. And by the way, first thing off the bat, Russians love paperwork. Like, the amount of paperwork for everything is just ridiculous. So a lot of people, to get around that, they'll actually ship their vehicles from Finland and drive them over. And I would imagine, I don't know, they probably do the same thing with Estonia or whatnot. I mean, St. Petersburg's just a few hours for both countries. Anyway, here's a couple quotes that I got, and like I said, I only found actually one company, I think, in the U.S. that was even willing. So me and Tony were going back and forth, and it was both like, hey, like, you trying to find a shipping company, I'll try to find a shipping company in my end, like, we can compare prices. Like, obviously, the Russian end would probably be cheaper, because everything's cheaper over there, but that was the idea. So here's a couple quotes, and a lot of these videos, they don't show, like, what the actual quotes look like when you get them. So here's a couple of them. Like I said, the only company that I actually got in contact with, MTL World, that said they would even ship anything from Russia to the U.S., Baltimore would be the port that's closest to me. It's like, here's the quote, $17.50. Doesn't include any of the extra fees, though. That's just for straight up shipping. Actual clearance through customs and anything like that, you got to do on your own. All extra fees, like, that doesn't include any of that. A couple extra options, I guess. One company over here pretty much straight up told me, like, hey, the closest thing we can do for you is Germany. Here's a quote from Germany. And like I said, this includes everything. So you have to have a customs clearance to clear it through the U.S. So there's a ton of extra. And I had to do that separately through a separate company, and I'll get to that later in this video. But basically, this is, includes all that, and some shipping companies do. Freight forwarders, they'll include all the fees and everything, and some's just straight up shipping. So the actual shipping for this was $13.50, but you see by the end of it, $2,140. But they give you a detailed list of, hey, so much rent, charges at the destination, origin, entry. Like I said, this was from Germany, though. Obviously, I ended up buying my van in Moscow. Like, that's little, I would love the adventure, but especially when I went with COVID and everything and restrictions, and that wasn't going to happen. Plus, I was kind of on a bit of a time frame. Got another shipping option here, and we were actually considering this from Finland, and basically 2,570. But Finland's obviously a lot closer to Russia, and here's obviously all the charges and everything, what you got to pay, the filing. And by the way, there's two types of shipping. I probably should have said this right up front. You have ro-ro shipping, and then you have container shipping. I did Ro-Ro, and there's advantages to both. Obviously, everybody's heard of the whole container shortage thing. I don't want a part of that. And I actually did get, I think, a shipping container quote, and it was like 10 grand or something ridiculous. It's like, okay, like that's more than this entire trip in the van itself. I am not doing that. I did Ro-Ro. I didn't really have too many issues with it. So, and like I said, it's way cheaper. Basically, what it is like a gigantic car ferry that goes across the ocean. That's basically what Ro-Ro shipping is. Container, you're obviously driving your vehicle into a container, but the problem is with Ro-Ro, it's got to be bone empty. Like, you can't, like, I wish I could just fill the entire back of the van full of parts and whatnot, but I wasn't able to do that with Ro-Ro shipping, where, on the contrary, if I did a container, that would be an option. So, like I said, here's a couple quotes just so you can see them. I haven't really seen any videos where, and obviously when you go to the website, you have to, UAZ wasn't an option really for any of them, so I had to, put in the actual dimensions and weight and whatnot, where I wanted to ship it to. So that's that. Another thing that Tony did for me, so you think I'm weird, there's this guy named Alex that lives in the U.S., but he owns a business selling vans out of Kyrgyzstan. And he got me in contact with him, and he was like, dude, like, I know these vans inside and out, but obviously, like, I don't live in the U.S., I don't know the U.S. side of things, like, out of any U.S. citizen, this guy probably has more experience with Bukhanka. And like I said, he owns a business renting these things out in Kyrgyzstan. That's just crazy, man. So he got me in contact with him, and here, get with him, like, he'll tell you everything you need to know from an American, and amazing resource. And again, I cannot say enough about Alex as well. He called me up. We were on the phone for a while. We're still texting back and forth for a while, but all this for free. Guy never charged me anything, or just advice like, hey, like, somebody that's owned a ton of these, like, let me know how they work. Let me tell you how they work. Some things I would advise you do while you're over there. Blah 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 blah. So I'll probably, again, his business, I'll probably put a link or something of it down in the description. But like I said, he was giving me, and this guy knows everything. Like, if you're an American and if you're looking at a Bukhanka, like, you go and contact Alex. Like, that's the guy. He knows, like, everything, Soviet car-wise going into America. And he was telling me, horror stories about, like, people, like, getting, ripped off in Detroit and stuff. And, that's the guy. The Soviet car market in America, that's your guy. So I definitely cannot highly, recommend, if you ever want to do this yourself, reaching out to him. He's a complete legend. So next up, I guess, on the list would be actually going over there. And like I said, there was two options with Tony. I could have either, I guess, slightly more expensive, would have been a lot more paperwork, but I could have just sat at home, had him do everything, or I could have actually went over there. I'm a bit of an adventurer myself, so it's like, oh, cool. By the way, a little precursor, I'm in my early 20s. The only country I've ever been to was Canada for 2 days, so I don't even know if that really counts. I was within, like, 30 miles of the border the entire time, and it's Canada. It's like North America. Like, there's really not much of a difference. So Russia was a complete cultural blast for me. But if an idiot like me can, go over there and, didn't have really any issues, then there's really no excuse. So basically, I had to get a visa. And again, when I went over, the only country in all of Europe that you needed a visa for was Russia. Belarus changed it since then. It used to be you could fly into Minsk and visa free for a couple days, but they changed that. And another thing, even if you did find a van in Belarus, like, getting it to the port, I mean, it's a landlocked country. You would have to do something about that too. You'd have to get some sort of transit visa or something, unless you found a shipping company. We actually bought our van in Moscow, drove it to the port in St. Petersburg. I was in the port and everything. I got to experience the tons of stacks of paperwork, so I had all that fun. But again, that's another advantage. If you find one in Poland or something, Latvia, I'm sure some of the Baltic countries would be great because they're EU. So you have obviously as an American, things would be a lot simpler. Paperwork-wise, there would be a standard, again, imagine, shipping a vehicle from Germany or shipping a vehicle from, like Estonia or something would be somewhat similar, compared to, like a Russia, or if you find one in Kazakhstan or something, everything's completely different, and there's not a lot of information out there for that. So that's definitely an advantage. And I would imagine, again, in some of those ex-Soviet countries, getting parts and stuff wouldn't be that big of a deal either, because, how many UAZs are laying around in, Lithuania or something. Like, there's probably a decent amount. It used to be in the Soviet Union. So, another advantage. But again, I decided on Russia. Tony was in Russia. I went to Russia. So, I did have to get a visa for that. All right. So, getting the visa. Russia's really easy. I was actually able to do everything through the mail. The embassy has a service I found lets Russia. It was like, I don't know, a couple $100, I think, by the time I actually to get the visa, and then pay the embassy and whatnot. They charge like $100 or something as well, but a lot cheaper than actually having to fly out to DC or New York or something like that and wait and whatnot. Probably took me like 4 hours though, but filled out a bunch of forms, mailed them out with my passport, and literally a couple weeks, like a week or two later, I got my passport back with my visa. So that's all that was. That was super easy. It's a lot easier than I thought it would be. Like I said, I didn't even have to go anywhere. It's just a couple $100 and bam. Also, another thing before you run off and try to buy them, depending on where you live, and that's the thing about the U.S. and Canada, I guess, compared to like Europe, for example, is each state or province is completely different. So I live in Michigan. Michigan rules and laws for importing a foreign vehicle are going to be different than Alabama or California or so on and so forth. So like, I know a couple states it can get pretty difficult. Like if you live in California, I think Hawaii, Washington State, like import laws are a lot different than the rest of the country. Thankfully, where I live, basically, as long as your vehicle is older than 25 years old, you're in the clear. You're good. You got to obviously fill out the paperwork and the forms, and I'll get to that. But you can't be buying like a brand new Bukhanka and expect to transfer it over to the U.S. It's not going to be road legal. It has to be older than 25 years. Somehow, if you live in Canada, it's only 15, so must be nice. I wish we had that, but U.S. it's 25. That's cool. I kind of wanted a Soviet era one anyway, just to say I had one. Come on, like, yeah, this was made in the Soviet Union. That sounds a lot cooler than Russia, but that's the law. And like I said, each state's different. I would recommend going to your DMV website. This is the Michigan one, for example, and basically, you need to have your 7501 form. You need to have some sort of ownership documents. HS7 form and your 3520 form, basically EPA, kind of like a safety DOT form, and your form saying, hey, like this vehicle has illegally entered the country. That's all you need, and some ownership, like whatever, your Russian version of your title or your Estonian version of your title or whatever. Like you need to have that. That's all you need. Pretty simple. I got a couple different. Like I said, this is the actual U.S. website, and I would recommend that you read all the stuff before you do it, because some of these, like the actual federal website here, like you can't import one from saying like Serbia, for example. Well, that might be a bit difficult. Some of these countries are obvious, like yeah, you can't import a vehicle from Afghanistan or North Korea, like duh. But I would go through this anyway, just to read through. This is the federal level, so obviously if it's not legal here, it's not going to be legal in your state. And here your car is not a shipping container. Cleaning the undercarriage, like all this stuff you should need to know anyway. So that's the federal level. Here's a couple different other states. Like this is Alabama, for example. These are the forms that you need. They have a nice little list here. I think New York here, this is their DMV, and almost every state has some sort of something on their website telling you what you need. And you definitely need to know all this information before you go over there and buy something. So the last thing you want to do is go over, buy a van, and it's 23 years old, it's not 25, and now you're stuck, and you paid how much money, and get over there, or if you paid somebody on the ground over there, and you can't even register the thing in the U.S. Like that would suck. So definitely recommend wherever you live, look at the federal laws, look at your state laws, make sure that you can import this before you even go out and decide to do anything about it. So next thing, I guess moving on here, I would strongly recommend if you're going to any, I guess, country that uses the Cyrillic alphabet, like same thing for Ukraine, or I don't even know who else, like Belarus, or I would strongly recommend learning the alphabet before you go. I just think it would make things a lot easier. You don't need to know the language, obviously. Like, I'm not fluent in Russian, so I'm not the person to say anything about that. But I definitely think it will make your life a lot easier. If you can read things. Um, so COVID restrictions, that's another one. Kind of forgot about that. So I mean, it's the new world that we live in. It sucks. I don't like it, but here's a cool map here that you can go through and if it would work. Yep, here we go. And basically, each country is completely different. What I like about this, if you're vaccinated or not, obviously if you're going to Russia, it's not like it really matters. Sputnik, Sputnik or nothing, right? What country? Like, I'm a U.S. citizen. Obviously, what country's going to go into? Some are free, some aren't. But definitely, like when I went to Russia, I had to have a negative PCR test like 2 days before I left. Wasn't too difficult. And honestly, when I did get there, like they didn't even really look at it. Like some nurse just grabbed my paper at the airport and like kind of tossed it, and like that was that. But yeah, definitely look into that before you go, if you decide to go that route. Anyway, so basically, moving on here. I had all the money, foreign currency. I had all the money in cash in advance. So I brought about $4,000 cash, I believe. I think the van I ended up buying, and I'll have some pictures of that. It was about 3,500. We looked at a few of them when we got over there. Like I said, Tony kind of drove around, and it was. I think we looked at about three of them, and I'll have some pictures up on the screen. You can see the different ones that we looked at and whatnot. But the one, that he thought was, hey, he told me privately, dude, like, I think this is the best option. If I were you, this is what I would get. So that's the one that I ended up buying. Have had a few mechanical issues if you saw my garage clip, but, nothing major, nothing serious. Just had a couple studs break off. But, yeah. So definitely recommend checking out a few, and that's an advantage of going over there compared to not going over there. Is I was able to check these things out in person, and that was really nice actually to see it. Like, hey, I don't like this. Like the first one we looked at, for example, like it was from a dealership, which was nice, and I'll get into registering on the Russian side, I guess, in a little bit, so you'll know about that. So because it was from a dealership, registering the thing would have been a lot easier, but the body on the thing was just shot, like it was rotted, man. Where the one that I currently bought, like, it doesn't have a perfect body, but yeah, a lot better than the first one that we looked at. And Russia, they love their road salt, so these things do rot out pretty fast. So it's definitely something to look for, and you pay for what you get. So yeah, I got probably the most expensive out of the three options, but again, it's only like 3,500, and I paid for it in cash. Anyway, moving on here. So there's a lot of different, the problem, and again, this is local to your market. So I'm used to the U.S. where you can just go in, like where I live, we don't have, I know some people have like, smog inspections or whatever. Like we don't have any of that in Michigan. So just go to the DMV or Secretary of State, we call it, and get your paperwork done. And they never inspect the vehicle. They never have to look at it. Russia, that's not the case. And they didn't even really care about emissions. The big deal was they wanted the vehicle to be original to the way it was bought. So any modifications basically need to be reversed. Example, that the van that I bought, you needed to have a roof. It had a roof rack on it. Well, that wasn't original to the van. We literally had to cut off the roof rack before we brought it into inspection, which kind of pisses me off. I like that, but it is what it is. We had to there's like a panel that divides the cab from the back. It didn't have one of those in there, so Tony lent me his, and we were able to put that up to get through inspection. Another thing they were kind of worried about when they were inspecting the vehicle was, I guess, somebody upgraded the brakes, which, like, cool, like they upgraded the brakes, but Russia, they don't like that. It needs to be original. So the guy was kind of giving us some, slack for that. It didn't, for another example, like it didn't come with seat belts. And if we put seatbelts on it, we might not have been able to get through inspection because the van never originally came with seatbelts. So every country, I'm sure, has its weird quirks. Those are the Russian quirks. I had no idea before we went there to do that. But when we're actually getting the vehicle inspected, and I think the reason that we did get through inspection, like I said, the brake system they wanted us to redo because God forbid you upgrade your brakes. But because basically I'm an American, and it was like we're exporting the country, like, dude, this van's gonna be out of the country in like 4 days. It's probably never coming back. Like, give us a break. And they ended up doing that. And that's another good thing about having a local guy. Like, if it wasn't for Tony, man, I would have been screwed. So we decided that we would pay the seller after we bought the vehicle, and I guess the reasoning for that is, let's say for some odd reason we didn't get through inspection or whatnot, then we would be set. We weren't out, how much money and for a vehicle that we couldn't legally register. So that's the route that we went. The seller was okay with that. And again, that's something I wouldn't even have thought of doing. So I think Tony is with me. Anyway, the actual experience. So there's 2 documents that we had that when we actually bought the vehicle, when we went in. And by the way, we got all the paperwork done the first day. And the idea was we were going to get everything done, get it registered that first day. And then we were going to go to it's already been like a week now. And we were going to go get it inspected, and then Tony's other friend Alex in Moscow, we're going to take it to his shop, and he was going to fix it all up, and we were going to get on our way to St. Petersburg, drop the van off. I planned on being there for around 9 days. I strongly advise, if you are going abroad to buy a vehicle, if you choose that route, spend a couple of weeks at least, because I did have to extend my stay. It didn't really work out that way. When we tried to go through inspection that day, they literally told us, like, hey, we can't do it today. We got to get you tomorrow. There's no other way around. And we actually had to go through, I'm just going to call it DMV. I guess they call it over the road police. We had to go to a couple of them, because when we first went there, anytime you have a vehicle that's been modified, you have to register it in Russia. Well, this thing, I guess, was really modified because the paper showing the modifications was just covered with stamps completely. And the person who was registering vehicles was like, dude, like, we can't do any of this here. You got to go to the place where it was originally registered. Thankfully for us, that was, a half hour or something down the road. It wasn't too big of a deal, but keep that in mind as well. That's what we had to go through. So we couldn't even, the first office we went to, they wouldn't even take us. They did, another thing to keep in mind, they did need to translate my passport. And even though I had a Russian visa, which was in Russian, obviously, they needed my actual passport itself, and they needed it in Russian letters, which I thought was ridiculous. I mean, everybody over there can read English letters, but that's the way it is. That's the way the law was. Good thing, another thing over there, getting stuff, notarized translations is very easily. We found a place, like, very close by. It wasn't a big deal. It took like half an hour or something, but keep that in mind as well. It might be a good idea. Obviously, it's going to be cheaper in Russia, but before you start to, actually register your vehicle under your name to, hey, getting my passport translated, just to avoid that. And again, I would go out of my way to find a vehicle that is unmodified, because you're going to have to go through a ton of hoops if you want to get that thing registered in your name, just because that's the way things work. So this is what my actual registration card looked like. So we went over there, basically, Tony handled everything in the window. I was just kind of there waving and saying hello and smiling. But this is what mine looked like. Another thing, he went out of his way on the back here. It'll have like your name and stuff, and usually that name is in, let's see if I can find an example here. It's blurry, but it's in the Russian alphabet, and he had it where they put it, my name in the English alphabet as well, which made it way easier when I had to register in the States. So I'm thankful for that. Again, another one of those things I would not have thought of. So I got this paper. This is like a tiny laminated card, by the way. That's what it looks like. It's just one card. This is, the scan here. That's just both sides of the one card. Yeah, and this is how it is right here, exactly. Another thing we had, and important for me, and again, hold on to this stuff. You need it for sure, or else you're never going to be able to register it. And I'm just going to show you the bottom. This is kind of like the sales contract that we filled out between me and the person who was selling the vehicle. Both had our signatures. Again, they had somebody sign for me, and then I signed my normal signature beside that, actual signature of the seller. And when I went to the Secretary of State of Michigan, they needed, we need to have a signature of the seller on file. They were very adamant about that. So the fact that I had this original document, hold on to it. You trust me, you're going to need it, especially if you live in Michigan, like where I do. They were, we need to have the signature. So that's that, and you will get, these are the export plates I got, and they looked exactly like this. You saw them on the back of the van when I showed the video. Actually, 77, the guy might have even went through the same place that I did to get these, but that's what they look like, and they're just paper laminated plates. They're not metal or anything, but when you get the vehicle transferred over to your name, that's what the plates look like. I also got an international driver's permit. If you plan on driving this vehicle abroad, I would look at, it's not a bad idea to have one. I think it cost me like $20 or something. As long as you have a, legal U.S. license, you can legally drive over there. But again, it's completely, I'm used to U.S. driving. It's crazy over there. Like Smokey and the Bandit level stuff. So Tony drove for the most part. Just very thankful for that. But if you do plan on driving, it's not a bad idea to have one, and it'll have a translation in here of your actual passport in Russian. So if they ever do get pulled over or anything, there's not going to be a language barrier. So that helps out big time. I do strongly recommend doing that. Other things that I am trying to think of. So, like I said, it took us an extra day, so we got it through registration. Oh, by the way, corruption-wise, so when you go over, and again, my first thought, Eastern Europe, and something Alex, the Bukhanka rental guy, was telling me about Kyrgyzstan, the corruption and stuff he's had to deal with getting vehicles registered. I had a thing of whiskey that I brought over from the airport, and we were going to try to thank the police officer basically for helping us get their registration afterwards. Here you go, a little gift from the States or whatever. They would not accept it. Dude, it's going to make us look bad. If you want to thank us, give us a good review or something online. So that little tidbit out there, we didn't deal, everything was by the book. We didn't deal with any corruption at all in the entire way there. So I thought that was kind of cool, but we went to Tony's friend's shop. His name is Alex, and that was in Moscow. What was it? Yeti Custom, I think was the name. And another guy, legend. It was like 8 o'clock or something at night, and basically, we were planning on driving through the night to get to the port of St. Petersburg, because, like I said, I was on a bit of a time crunch, and I mean, geez, it was like 4 or 5 people. I'll show some pictures and some videos in the shop, but it was just crazy watching 5 Russian guys just go at it in an hour, fixing up everything they possibly could before our road trip. And the road to St. Petersburg Moscow, St. Petersburg was 11 hours, 12. It's a decent drive, It's like driving halfway across the U.S. Russia's a huge country, and these things only go top speed 55 miles an hour, so it's not like we're going that fast. So, I don't know, he got done with that at, about 9 o'clock, and we rushed over. And we did have some mechanical issues, and that's another thing. If you do go and buy one, good thing, in my mind, I wanted to do the road trip instead of, we could have shipped it to St. Petersburg, just shipped it to the port. So, again, if you go over, let's say you wanted to stay some time, save some dates, hey, I'll buy this vehicle in Moscow, or even I'll buy it in St. Petersburg, port's right there, or we'll ship it to the port, don't have to go through the port, easy, bang. I wanted to drive it just because if anything did happen or break down, I wanted it to break down while we're in Russia, because obviously getting parts, mechanics that work on these things all the time, super easy. Everybody over there, you just say Bukhanka, and they know exactly what you're talking about. Where in the U.S., good luck. And we did have some issues. Brakes went out. We ended up getting the radiator changed out on the way. But other than that, nothing too serious, nothing internal with the engine or anything like that. And, I mean, geez, we got all that stuff fixed, just finding a shop and, getting it fixed, a few hours. And, again, I'm used to the U.S. where you got to book an appointment, you're waiting out a few days. I'm not used to just driving right in. Oh, I got a Bukhanka, need the radiator changed, go get it. And that's what happened. So that was really nice. I appreciate that. That's one of the things I love about Russia, though, is that you are able to do that. And, in the U.S., that's just impossible unless you know somebody. So getting to the port, so this is the fun part. So Tony made the booking, like I said. I looked at a few different companies. Couldn't really get anything. I had the one company, but again, that was just for shipping. They didn't include any extra charges or anything. So I guess before I get into that, before I forget, we did have to get insurance for it. That was easy, right next to the place where you actually register the vehicle. There's a ton of insurance places, and again, the plates, export plates only last for a week or two. So it's not and we were only in Russia. So I think we actually ended up getting it online or something like that. But I don't, it was like $10 or something. Tony took care of it. But like I said, there's a ton of places by the where you register your vehicle and online as well. So that really wasn't much of a concern. It's the actual road between Moscow and St. Petersburg. But getting on to actual shipping. So when we did get over there, we had to wait till a Monday because the port was only open on weekdays, and the actual port that we went to, it's Bronco, I think. Probably pronouncing that wrong, but it's like right here. And Tony made the booking and everything, and that's where having somebody on the ground, especially in a country like this, is very useful because he had somebody. He's tried to do this before. He had a ton of issues. He's had to fly back and forth multiple times, and I guess he had a guy that helped him out with the paperwork and everything. I only went in there. They had me go into the port. And by the way, I guess before before I get to this part, I did have to fill out a power of attorney before. So to get into a port, like not anybody can just walk into a port, right? The U.S., the exact same thing is true. You gotta, and for a foreign citizen to get into the port in Russia, it's just crazy the amount of stuff you have to do. So I had to fill out a power of attorney form, basically saying that Tony, on my behalf, could go to the port and do everything for me to save all that. And that was almost an all-day thing too. I was sitting in some office in St. Petersburg, like the actual city, and they needed to have because I couldn't read every word of the contract. It's in Russian, obviously. They had to have somebody, formally translate it to me, which, again, Tony speaks perfect English, but they needed to have, like, a certified translator, so we literally had to wait half a day just for that. So that was an all-day thing on Sunday. Fast forward, now we're at the port on Monday, power of attorney, so he can do everything on my behalf. They needed to have because this is just for the actual shipping itself. And I think to actually ship the vehicle, it was like 2,300 or something like that. If I remember correctly, it wasn't too bad considering it's literally going across the world. But they needed to have a customs broker on the U.S. side to accept it. This is who I ended up going through, Fast Customs Clearance. It's out of New York. I ended up shipping to Baltimore, but it doesn't matter. And I called this guy while I was over there. I didn't have anybody at the time, and I was calling a few people, and literally called, picked up the phone, like, yeah, we can do that. He thought at first I was shipping to Russia. He's like, we don't do that. I'm like, no, I'm shipping from Russia. He's like, oh, okay. I'm sure that's not a very common thing. And yeah, zero issues. Geez, I don't know how much I paid this guy, probably a few $100s, but nothing that bad. I've got a pricing thing right here, but immediately got with me. Yeah, that's the fee. It's like $50 plus the like $125 and whatnot. So basically, Tony gave that information to his guy, and they made the actual booking to get into the port. So that was an all-day thing. Like I said, I initially walked into the port. We dropped off the van. We took the plates off. They do say, I think, what is it? Like, if you look at any of the websites, it has to have less than like a quarter tank of gas and it has to be clean. Well, we were in Russia in October. The thing was like covered in mud, and I think we filled up right before we left. They never said anything about it, so I don't know. That's what all the sites and everything say you got to do, though. So just keep that in mind. I would definitely, read. You don't want to get rejected or whatnot, but I was okay. I didn't have any issues. So shipped the vehicle. Like I said, it was literally all day at the port though. So I filled out my paperwork and I literally sat down and literally I was just staring out the window watching Tony like literally run between like all these different buildings for like 8 hours. So I don't know exactly everything that he had to do. Again, the vehicle shipped, wasn't any issues as far as I know. He didn't have to go back and do anything, and I think me actually being there made things a lot easier because he told me he's had customers that weren't there, and just trying to do everything on their behalf was so difficult. It was me there. I had my passport on me. This is my vehicle. It's registered in my name. I'm shipping it to me, and when I did get it registered, when I did get it shipped, the way it was able to ship was the guy, I guess the way he was explaining it to us was it was a part of my luggage, basically. Like, I'm in Russia, I bought this vehicle, it's part of my luggage, it's going back to me in the U.S. That's the way it was categorized. So, ton of paperwork. I mean, it was a nightmare. And again, Tony handled everything. I was literally just sitting there, like, playing on my phone all day. But just know that if you are trying to ship from Russia, you got to have somebody on the ground, or if you're from there, even if you do speak fluent Russian, like I said, he had to have a guy there that, helped him out just because of everything. And that's where, again, retrospect, shipping from Finland or something, I think Koka has a pretty big port. That might have been easier, but that's just the way we did things. We ended up shipping from St. Petersburg directly. Another two things keep in mind, I guess, on the U.S. side of things when you start clearing it, there's two forms you need to fill out, at least if you don't live in California or something like that. But this is Form 3521, so there's an EPA form. You need to fill that out. I had to give this to my customs clearance guy, like, right off the bat. And again, if you're older than 25 years, you're exempt. Same thing, this is HS7. This is for safety, basically. And again, it's a Bukhanka, this thing. Airbags, yeah, good luck. But older than 25 years, you're exempt. Fill out the form. Two forms. I needed to send that to my clearance guy. And I also had to send him a power attorney form, basically saying he could clear it on my behalf as well. So those were the three forms I had to fill out. Not too big of a deal in the big picture of things, and I had zero issues getting, everything cleared and whatnot. So very thankful for that. Moving on here, actually paying for the shipping. They sent me information on their banking information, and I think we had to make another thing. They do bank transfers for everything over there, like just straight up, like not using a credit card, not using like PayPal or anything like that, just directly. Where again, as an American, like I'm not used to that at all. Like you got to wire something, like oh crap, you got to go to the bank, you got to fill out paperwork. They just do that for everything. So I used UAZ. It's an app on your phone that you can get and for free. And basically, like, hey, this is how much this costs. This is all the bank information for the shipping company. The 25, whatever it was, 100 that I needed to pay. I just transferred that to their main office. I think it was in like Cyprus or Malta or some weird country like that. But again, on Wise, they gave me all their banking information. I just filled it all on there, and it immediately transferred everything over. Didn't have any issues. So that's how I actually paid for my shipping. Like I said, the vehicle itself I ended up paying for in cash, but shipping I was able to do that. So make sure, again, you have the funds in your bank account before you try to do that. But yeah, these are all the forms you need. Pretty simple, I guess. Next thing we will get into, and by the way, the actual shipping company itself was it? So the shipping company actually, the vehicle didn't go directly to Baltimore, right? So first thing, it went from St. Petersburg to Finland, and then Finland, I think it got dropped off in Antwerp. And then Antwerp, it kind of like they do a loop usually, so it went down the coastline, Canada, down to Baltimore. That's where mine got off at. It was kind of cool though. You can track the ship. These are basically some receipts I got from the actual shipping company itself. Like I said, this is the bank transfer that I did. Nothing major. So you get this paper if this is like your bill of lading, basically. You need to hold on to this. You need this when you go to register your vehicle, but it kind of gives you some short instructions, basically. And you'll get a notice from the shipping company right before it arrives at the port, and some kind of sort of vague instructions of like where it is or whatnot. I think mine was at Dundalk, which again, each port usually has an area for like ro-ro shipping or something. You got to find out where that is, and then there is storage fees. I think I ended up paying like, I don't know. Yes, right here for ro-ro shipping, Dundalk. But I ended up paying, a couple $100. It wasn't anything too bad. The difficult part was getting a hold of somebody at the port was a pain. Like, I kept on trying to get a hold of somebody. Hey, like, I know to get in a port, you need to have, I think, a TWIC card or something. Like, can you help me out? Like, how do I pick up my vehicle? And it was basically told, when I did get a hold of somebody at the port, which was very difficult to do, this is, find a shipping company, come in with a trailer. They didn't really say anything about how I was supposed to enter the port or whatnot. These instructions were very vague. And as far as actually paying for the storage, I think you get like a week or two free. After that, you got to start paying. And when I did have to start paying because I was trying to find a trucking company because I didn't want to actually go there. Um, on the U.S. side, it was a pain in the butt, and I had to have the trucker. The trucker himself actually ended up having to pay the port fees because I could not get a hold of the actual person to pay it. I had her number. I kept on calling her, emailing her. Almost no replies. It was, like I said, the communication was just awful. So unless you're actually there, I don't really know how else you're supposed to pay it. Anyway, this is the shipping company I went to. So I'm back in the States now. So this is the shipping company once I flew back that I used to get it from the port to where I live, which is out in the Midwest in Michigan. Obviously, if you live by the port, it wouldn't be a bad idea. Like, if you live by Miami or something, I mean, your life would be a lot easier. But if you lived out in Kansas, obviously, the last thing you want to do is have to drive out to the port and try to pick this up. Anyway, the reason I went through these guys is, I think the company is located, like, near Chicago or something, which is close to me. And basically, they say here, hey, our drivers are TWIC certified, port-to-port shipping services. So basically, just find a shipping company that has a TWIC certified driver. So I did that. It took a while because I kind of live in an odd corner. So I would say it took me a few weeks before they finally found a company that was able to pick up my vehicle and drop it off to me. The total charges for that, I think I ended up paying about $1,200 by the time it was said and done. And like I said, the driver actually had to pay the couple $100 warehousing fees or whatnot on top of that. So I gave him a little I gave him a little tip. I'm like, yeah, sorry about that. That's basically as far as it goes for shipping. That's all I had to go through. Next, and the final step is actually registering the vehicle, which, again, none of the stuff's that difficult. There's just no information on it. So I went to, again, our Secretary of State. I had a folder. By the way, I would get certified translations of no matter where you get the vehicle, unless you get it from the UK or something, everything into English. So that's what I did. Just find some notarized translation site or something online. I emailed all my documents in. I got them all back, notarized, translated, and I basically walked in with a folder. This is all my stuff. Tax-wise, when you import your vehicle in, so your customs agent or whoever you hire to take care of that for you, there's a few different brackets for taxes for vehicles, and there's nothing really that says van. You have cars that's like 2.5% or something, and then you have trucks that are like 25%. Fortunately, I think I got charged for the truck rate, so I did have to pay a decent amount tax-wise to get the vehicle in, but that's just federal. That's not your state tax. So your federal taxes and all that, that'll be taken care of by whoever is clearing your vehicle through customs. So as far as actual state goes, I walked in there. Like I said, I had a folder. I had certified translations of everything. The difficult part was, and I guess before I get into this, these vans, the actual VIN number, they paint it on the frame. So you have a body number and you have an engine number. So when I had my vehicle shipped, and I actually have my bill of lading, it shows that where this is your body number, this is your engine number, and then just says VIN number. It's like just blank. I ended up going with I kind of did a little bit of 50-50, honestly, and I don't recommend that. Go back in time. I would probably just do body number for everything. When I was filling out one of the forms, I don't remember if it was the admissions form or the safety form, it said VIN number / engine number, so I ended up just putting down my engine number because, like, hey, I don't have a VIN, but I do have an engine number. When I went into the Secretary of State, we started doing everything by body number. So it's like, oh, okay, like if they start looking at the papers here and they see that I don't, some of the numbers don't necessarily match up. But it was all good with me. It's just if I could go back, I would have just done everything by body number. Just say that's your VIN number, like, hey, Soviet vehicle, that's how these work. Because chances are, if you're importing a vehicle, you're not going to be able to import a new one. It has to be older than 25 years if you're American, 15 if you're Canadian. And like I said, the Soviet ones, the VIN numbers only last on there a couple of years. They're just painted on the frame. I don't understand why they did it that way. But, and anyway, the body number is right underneath the passenger seat for mine, right on the side. Pretty easy to see. And as far as insurance goes on the U.S. side, I was kind of worried on that as well. That was simple. I just called up my normal insurance agent, said, hey, I got this van, this is the name of it, I really doubt you have anything like this in your system, but And they just asked me like how much they, retailed for, year, blah blah blah, and I got my insurance like in 5 minutes. Like, hey, we just emailed it to you, print it off, you got insurance. So that's all insurance wise. I didn't have to get any weird specialty or Haggerty or anything like that. My normal insurance company handled it. They did ask that I take a few pictures of it just for their like accounting department, but that's all I needed to do to get U.S. insurance for it. So anyway, get your insurance before you register it. But I had my folder. I had the 3 documents I needed: the EPA form, I had the safety form, I had my bill of lading form, I had all my insurance stuff, I had the original documents, I had the translated documents, and I also had my bill of sale, which is super important because they need those signatures. Since it's not a traditional title, and basically what they told me on a traditional title transfer, they look at the signatures, obviously, and I guess that's the big, that's how you get your new title. Since I didn't necessarily have like a title transfer form, like it's not a traditional title, I just had like a little registration card that I already showed you, that little laminated thing. They used the signature off the bill of sale to give me my title. So I had to wait in there for a while. I actually had to visit twice, so I went there for a while, and again, they had to make a lot of phone calls. It was kind of an odd thing. I had to pay the Michigan state tax, which was like 2%, or it wasn't a big deal. I don't know how much I ended up paying, not a lot. And then wait around for a while. And I literally told the people, like, hey, I went to your website. I have everything which is required. Like, I know I can legally register this vehicle. And they ended up, I had to have a police officer, which I understand. They had to have a police officer. I had to call the police department, and they had to basically check the vehicle just to make sure the numbers match, which they did. Officer signed off on this form saying that the numbers matched. Then I had to go back a second time, gave them all the forms, and then they kept all my documents. So, like, my Russian registration card, I don't have that anymore. I think the original bill of sale or whatever, I don't have that anymore. The state took all of that, and then they handed me license plates, and hey, your U.S. title, it's going to be in the mail in like a week or two. So sure enough, check the mail like a week later. Clean Michigan title, UAZ 452, 1987 is my year. And that's all it was to it. So it wasn't really that difficult. Like I said, it was just a lot of confusion. They actually had to call the main office because there wasn't, on their computer system, there hasn't been an UAZ ever registered. It wasn't in the system, but again, that only took like 20, 30 minutes of waiting around before they finally added it. So that's all there is. I'm sorry for rambling on. I know it's kind of a long video, but whenever people make like, pictures or videos of them importing all this stuff, like they never really mention, or they give very vague descriptions on how they actually do it. So I just thought it would be a good idea to make this. So thanks for watching, and bye.